Engineers often see themselves as problem solvers. Whether it's building machines, creating infrastructure, or developing new materials, at the heart of the project is typically a problem to be solved. The scale of these problems can vary massively, of course. When we're talking about infrastructure, engineers can be tasked with everything from sizing water pipes for a community of 10 people to building a bridge that needs to support 100,000 cars a day. On this episode of AE Live, we're talking about supporting community infrastructure.
Coming to you on the internet audio, all the STEM homies know is where you gotta go vibing your ride to the Graham and Michael groove. Whoa, it's a whole new funky flow and treat your ears, get the gist of careers from a list of our engineers and scientists, maybe twisted up with technologists. The podcast, baby, and not to be missed. Got more fly than a ripe banana. Like Sam, I got the stamina streaming across Canada. Like a tree and sugar band, I got that swiggity swag, yeah, and the 411 from my horse to Niagara. Don't you know we're gonna innovate? Got a topic here to elevate. Gonna entertain and educate.
This podcast was recorded in Edmonton, on Treaty 6 territory, and within the Métis homelands and Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 4. These lands are the ancestral territory for many Indigenous peoples, including the Cree, Blackfoot, Nehea, Dene, Iroquois, Ojibwe, Anishinaabe, Saulteaux, Nakota Iska, Nakota Sioux, Niitsitapi, Métis, and Inuit peoples. I thank them for caring for these lands since time immemorial. Delivering community infrastructure is often a challenge of balancing competing needs. There's the project's technical challenges, of course. Those are typical and more obvious issues that we can all think of. But those with experience in the field will tell you that the obvious problems aren't the only ones that need to be solved. There are often competing social needs. Will the project interfere with the lives of people in the area? Projects that span multiple communities often face funding challenges of who's going to pay for needed infrastructure and infrastructure upgrades. Climate change has introduced a new set of concerns. Not only does a project need to do what we expect it to do, but the probability of a changing climate affecting the work down the road is a real and present concern. My guest today is Tonderai Chakanyuka. He is Associated Engineering's Manager, Municipal Infrastructure, Central Region, working out of the Edmonton office. Tonderai joined AE in 2013 after spending time working in both Zimbabwe and the United Kingdom. Good morning, Tonderai. Thank you for joining me today.
Good morning.
So many of our engineers here at Associated have a degree from a Canadian university and are happy to be working in a community that's close to home or that they grew up in. You have a civil engineering degree from the University of Zimbabwe and an MBA from Cranfield University in the United Kingdom.
Yeah.
Tell me a bit about the path you took to get here today.
Yeah. So my journey began in Zimbabwe. I was born and raised in Zimbabwe. Later on, towards completing my high school, I started understanding what engineering was all about. I was lucky to have a cousin who was in engineering and was doing very well. So he ran a consulting firm. So I did spend some time with him understanding what engineering consultancy was all about. And I did realize that, you can be an engineer and be able to still help people deliver infrastructure that people need. So, my passion for helping people then just was reignited. So I was fortunate enough to get into the University of Zimbabwe, where I studied for an engineering degree. Finished my engineering degree, and then I worked in Zimbabwe for about 3 years. And I was recruited by a European consulting firm that was doing water infrastructure work in the United Kingdom. So that's how I moved to the United Kingdom as an engineer. Then I was working in the UK and excited about, delivering infrastructure. And I started looking at, how can I be more effective? How can I make myself better? Understanding that resolving the challenges that we have as engineers mainly relies on technical excellence. But technical acumen alone was not sufficient to, be able to be effective and reach my goal. So I decided that I wanted to learn more about leadership, learn more about management, and I enrolled into Cranfield University School of Management. So that's where I attained my Master of Business Administration. So that was the journey from Zimbabwe to the UK.
Right. Okay. That's a long journey, a lot of miles covered.
Yeah.
We
we as a company have often used the term like a global perspective, local focus. That seems particularly relevant for you. What has that international engineering experience in particular brought to you in your work here?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think for me, I was fortunate enough to have worked in 3 continents. Understanding engineering and how we do things differently. But from a global perspective, what that allowed me to do is to understand what is important in a certain environment. So, for example, I started my career in a developing country. And in that particular setting, the focus is more about, ensuring that people have the basic needs that they need. So being able to, some of the projects I did there were being able to deliver water infrastructure, clean piped water to a community that has never had piped water, a community that, people are sick due to waterborne diseases. They can't get access to clean water. A community where children are missing school because due to illness and not having access to clean water, and then seeing their smiles on their faces when they have clean water for the first time. For me, that was very fulfilling. And then moving to the UK, which is a developed country, and moving to Canada as well, which is a developed country where the challenges that they have are different. The challenges that they have are mainly how do we deliver infrastructure while still being responsible and ensuring that we are not negatively, significantly impacting the environment. So that perspective, what that gave me was an understanding that the success of an infrastructure project really relies on 2 things. The first being able to meet the primary objectives, which is a matter of infrastructure delivery, right? And then the secondary benefits, which are benefits that while you're delivering the infrastructure, you should also have benefits where the community, from a social point of view, the community is benefiting, the environment is being protected, and you are also doing it in a financially responsible way. So I think that global perspective and local focus, I think, it allows me to pay attention to certain things that perhaps maybe other engineers may miss, other engineers may not pay attention to. So it always gives me the view that I should look at the big picture when delivering infrastructure, knowing that we're not only, constructing a pipe that's underground, but we are doing something that is an impact to the community.
Right. Yeah, that must be a very different focus, I think, in perspective than we might see around the rest of the office.
Yeah.
You talked a little bit about, I guess, the enjoyment, the I think unique pleasure in working on a project for a community that may have never seen clean water like that. Are there any that stand out in your mind in particular? Projects you'd like to kind of tell us about?
Yeah. There's quite a few, and I'll start with Zimbabwe, and I'll give you a bit of background to make those projects relevant. So at the time that I came out of university after finishing my engineering degree, it was at a time when the country was not doing very well economically. We had hyperinflation in the country. Things were not going well. So when that happens, you tend to see all the qualified professionals leaving for greener pastures. So it happened at a time when, South Africa, I don't know if you know, but South Africa in 2010 became the first African country to host the Soccer World Cup. So around 2003, South Africa was constructing infrastructure that was needed there. So all the experienced engineers in Zimbabwe left to go to South Africa and other places in the world, of course. So I was thrown in the deep end, which was lucky for me because it allowed me to learn a lot. So I was able to lead project teams and design. So one of the projects that come to my mind is a project that we did in the Eastern Highlands of Zimbabwe, where we were putting a water supply system to a community that had never had water. And this was funded by a non-governmental international organization, Plan International. So it was a project that they funded. And we did, I worked on that project and we delivered that project successfully and was able to provide water to the villagers that had never had water. Another one that comes to my mind is it was more of an assessment, a study of one of the biggest projects water supply projects that have never undertaken in Zimbabwe, which was a water supply system for a big city in Zimbabwe. And they had constructed, I think, close to 70 kilometers of water line to bring water to the city. The city had perennial problems with water supply. So we were hired to go in and review it and do a case study for it. And some of the findings were very interesting in terms of addressing water leakage and, how they did that. But, projects like that are very big projects that, if you get the opportunity to be involved in showcasing that project, it's always a good thing. And moving to the UK, I started off doing water infrastructure delivery. And then I later on moved into wastewater, and I was leading a team there. But one of the projects that comes to mind is a waterline project that I did in the UK from the place called Brackley to Buckingham. And it was a waterline to replace one that was existing. And that the main driver for that project was the existing waterline was old, it was leaking, and it was constructed on the side of the road. So it ran parallel to the road. And because it was leaking, water was leaking onto the roadway. And in the winter, it turns into ice. And then there were accidents recorded. So I was brought in. And in addition to addressing that, this was in a sensitive area from an archaeological point of view, from an environmental point of view, and being able to meet with the residents, explain to them what we're doing, convince them that this is a good project. And I was happy with that project because, it was an award-winning project in the end. And the other thing we were also trying on that project was a new project delivery process, which brought together we were trying to standardize some of the aspects of delivery, but we were also looking at the risk and value process to figure out what the options were. So yeah, that one was a good project. And with associated engineering, I've had very interesting projects that I like. I do industrial projects, so I delivered an industrial project that involved a rail yard, stormwater ponds, brine ponds, and I also did Fort Hampton Park project. And Fort Hampton Park is interesting and unique because it's a living museum, so you can go there and you can tour the park and see what Edmonton used to look like in 1905, 1920, and 1885.
Right.
So we did the rehabilitation of the utilities there, and the park was closed for 2 years while we were working.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So you mentioned a project there with Associated. You joined Associated Engineering in 2013.
Correct.
What was there a specific project that brought you over, or how'd you end up here?
Yeah. So Associated Engineering was recruiting in the UK at that time. And it just happened to be, it was at a time when I was looking for the next challenge in my career. I do have family in Canada, so my brother was living in Canada. So it made it easy to move to Canada. So my wife and I moved to Canada through Associated Engineering. And, we settled in Edmonton. And that's where we are. That's where we've been. But mainly for me, I'm not scared of taking challenges, and moving from one country to another was certainly not a challenge that scared me. The part that I wasn't aware of is how cold it gets in Edmonton. So nobody told me that. And I came and visited, and they let me visit in the summer. And when I moved, it was in the summer, and winter finally arrived. And I'm like, okay, now I see where the challenge is.
This was new.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it was just the love for, taking on new challenges, looking to make myself better, and moving to Canada was not something that I was scared of. So I moved to Canada because Associated recruited me from the UK, but from a career point of view, I was at a point in my career where I was looking for the next challenge.
All right, so you settled in Edmonton here. You've obviously gotten used to the winters.
Yeah.
You've done a lot of work with Edmonton, but also in some of the smaller towns of Alberta. what's working in Alberta been like, and yes, how have you enjoyed city of Edmonton versus some of the smaller communities you've had a chance to travel into?
Yeah, so the work I do, like you said, it's across Alberta, but I primarily focus on the Edmonton metro region, which is the city of Edmonton and surrounding municipalities, doing urban infrastructure work. I've enjoyed that in the sense that Edmonton is diverse. The Edmonton metro region is diverse. You got the big city Edmonton, and you get the smaller cities. The one thing that I've learned and continuously reinforced is there's no one size fits all solution. What works for the city of Edmonton might not work for a smaller municipality. So you have to be cognizant of that. You have to be aware of that. There could be similarities and some best practices, but you should be able to understand what works for your client. So I've delivered municipal infrastructure work. I've delivered studies. Also, I do asset management work and climate change work. What has kept me going in Edmonton is just the challenge of the variety of municipalities that we have, that they are similar, but some of the solutions may be different. The other thing that I like about the way we do things, not just in Edmonton, but across the country in associated engineering, is there's an entrepreneurial spirit within the company. Yes, I might be working in Edmonton and I might be leading that group, but the way that we go about, developing business development and, going into the markets, getting clients and building relationships with clients is no different to what I would do if I was running with practice and not working for Associated. So I like that approach because it gives you a little bit of latitude in terms of, how you run things. But of course, within the guidelines set by the company.
Sure.
So for me, I like within the area that I operate in, I like the portfolio of clients and portfolio of projects that we have. And that's what keeps me going.
Right. So you mentioned asset management. There's a lot of talk, I guess, through media, and you're starting to hear about Canadian municipalities dealing with aging infrastructure. How do you approach communities? How do you work with communities to balance budget pressures and the need to replace and update continuously and kind of improve their municipal infrastructure?
Yeah, most of the clients that we work with, I think they do recognize, at least most of them are starting to recognize the fact that, you do have objectives and you do have challenges, be it financial or infrastructure. All of those are competing for their attention. All of those are competing for funding. And you can't do it at the same time. So there has to be a way of managing these assets. So the way that we've managed to do it, working with clients, is understanding that there has to be a process that they need to follow in planning for their assets, understanding the condition of their assets, and then taking a life cycle kind of view on the assets. So what that does is it allows them to plan for any rehabilitation, plan for any replacement, and we help them come up with the strategies and come up with their asset management plans. But one of the ways that I've used in terms of explaining to clients about asset management is to take a systems view of things. Don't just look at the water pipe underground, but take a look at the system, that infrastructure system that you have, your transportation, your water, your sanitary. And you look at it that way, and you know that whatever you do on the roadway will probably impact what you do on the underground service. So when you take that holistic view, it allows you to be able to plan for those assets and be able to rehabilitate, replace, and even be able to plan for that replacement. So we are fortunate enough that the clients that we work with, they understand it. Some of them are coming to us actually asking about asset management and asking us to help them speak to council, come up with a strategy, come up with a roadmap, and then develop an asset management plan for them. And then, they start implementing these things.
So you're talking a bit about helping clients talk to council, and I think you mentioned previously working with communities and talking to the people in the community. This is more of a question, I guess, for the young graduate or the student at university, but when you were getting your education in engineering and thought you'd go into that, did it involve dealing with people as much as the job does now?
Yeah, early on when I was starting out, I think for me, like I said earlier, I was lucky under the circumstances, of course, that were probably not so lucky, that I was thrown in the deep end. So at a very early stage, I understood engineering to be not just about the technical aspects. So when I went into university, I didn't envision that, but 2-3 years after coming out of university, it became very clear that it involves all of that. So I set out to actually be someone that is not scared or is not shy to talk to people and talk to decision makers. But it also allowed me to understand engineering in a very deeper way, that our job as engineers sometimes is to influence decision makers to be able to make decisions that are good for the communities that we live in. And you may be an engineer that is responsible for doing the technical calculations, but also you have a duty to be able to convey the message to those that make decisions. So we have a duty to ensure that we influence those that make decisions. So to a graduate, that coming out of university, what I would say is do not limit your potential, do not limit your capabilities. Yes, engineering is a technical degree, but beyond the technical, there's much more than, just being able to look at models or run calculations or look at spreadsheets. And that's what excites me about our profession, that it's a profession that goes just beyond the technical aspect of what we do.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. So you've made a career of delivering municipal infrastructure projects primarily, and incorporating now the kind of the concept of asset management into it. And as years have gone by, I think the climate change, which you mentioned as well, has become a much larger part of people's consciousness and awareness of how that's affecting things around their communities. What do you see as the big effects of climate change, and how has incorporating resiliency and adaptations affected your work?
Yeah. So climate change, obviously, I think we all now understand that it's affecting us, and it will continue to affect us. From an infrastructure point of view, some of the challenges that we're seeing is infrastructure that is either not resilient or does not have sufficient capacity to deal with the impacts of climate change. So the way that I see it is, obviously, firstly, we have a duty as engineers. We have to ensure that we make the right decisions. We inform those that make decisions about the impacts of climate change. And secondly, the way that we used to design things back in the day have obviously changed because, you now have to take into consideration the impact of climate change. But the third thing I would say from a business point of view is the challenges that we are faced with in terms of climate change actually present opportunities for engineers, opportunities for us to step up and make a difference, and opportunities for us to actually do more. So, in terms of climate change, some of the work that we're involved in involves mitigation, be it a flood mitigation project. Also involves some adaptation work that we're doing to make sure that the infrastructure is resilient and can stand the impact of climate change. So those challenges exist, but the way that I look at them is, as an engineer looking at the future of engineering, I'm excited when I see that, because I know that, there's a part that we should play. for those graduates that are going into university studying their engineering degrees, what that means to me is, the world needs you, right? The engineering profession needs you. So for us to be able to tackle these challenges, we need engineering. And I'll go as far as saying, if you look at the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, almost all those Sustainable Development Goals have rely directly or indirectly on engineering and infrastructure delivery. And when you look at the impact of climate change, it's not different, right? Directly or indirectly, they rely on engineering and infrastructure delivery. Whether you're dealing with, unusually high rainfall events, whether you're dealing with, unusually high heat events where the temperatures are so high, flooding, wildfires, all those things, directly or indirectly, they rely on engineering, and they rely on us delivering the necessary infrastructure that is required to withstand that.
Right. Well, it sounds like for that young student going into university, engineering is probably a good profession for a future of increasing work. When we're talking climate change, I think it hasn't always been easy to get buy-in from the population at large, and maybe client decision makers. But I get the impression from talking to different engineers that that's been changing. What's your experience been like bringing climate change concerns and changing the way the project's done to your plants?
Yeah, my experience with that is it's changing. The perception is changing. We do have clients that come to us now seeking help to address the impacts of climate change. We also have some clients that, you're running a project. I'll give you an example, running a stormwater management project, and, you sit in meetings, and those clients are starting to bring their own people that handle climate change to sit in those meetings. So they recognize the importance of addressing climate change. And we also have situations where you sit in a meeting and you are talking to clients, understanding what some of the challenges they're faced with. You can quickly realize that they're struggling to deal with the impact of climate change and how they can handle it. And I think that's where we come in and say, would you want us to look at this for you? So I've been fortunate enough that some of our clients actually understand the impacts, and they've developed processes and procedures to deal with it. And I've delivered climate change vulnerability and risk assessment for the city of Edmonton. And we've also done some work, and we've done some training for the government of Alberta in climate change. So we have seen that there's been a shift. Some of the clients that we deal with now understand that something has to be done. And, where they want us to do work for them in climate change, we are delivering. But some of our clients, sometimes we talk to them, and it's almost a process of making them aware of what the impacts are. And then obviously they need help, so we can work with them.
Right. So in speaking of climate change, the need to develop new ways of doing things often pushes, boundaries, and pushes the ability, and it creates innovations and opportunities for innovation. I spoke with one of our buildings engineers in Vancouver who's working on some net zero buildings and kind of the innovative ways they've worked to capture heat and maintain the continuity of the building. I know we have engineers working on like sewer heat recovery systems to try and find new and innovative ways to do what cities need, but in minimizing the impact and reusing and trying to repurpose. What for you has been, or have there been opportunities for you to pursue those kind of innovative new ways of doing things, and what do you see maybe the future looking like?
Yeah, I think we have done very well as a profession, or maybe as a company, to ingrain some of these sustainable design processes and initiatives. Some of the work that we do, I do water lines, I do roadways sometimes as well. And our construction methodologies that we're using trenchless methodologies in most cases, if it's water lines. And those trenchless methods, they have relatively less carbon footprint compared to the traditional open cut excavation. So, that might not sound like an innovative way because we've done it so much, and we do have in-house experts that do trenchless technology. So those are some of the innovative ways that we do, but we do it so often that it doesn't feel like it. But when you look at that, you notice that the carbon footprint might be lower. Another one is the use of recycled material. When you're reconstructing roadways, I've done a project where we had to recycle the asphalt. Again, it minimizes what goes to waste and reduces rather the carbon footprint. But I think overall the concept of sustainable design is one that I believe is also innovative in the sense that you change your processes and procedures. When engineers are delivering work, the engineers that I work with, they're not only thinking about, the overall technical objectives, putting a pipeline from point A to point B, but they're also looking at what is the environmental impact and what is the benefit. They're also looking at the social side of things, like, are we impacting the community unnecessarily? How can we make lives better for people? So the concept of innovation in our world is there, and I think for us to continue to be innovative, it requires what I was talking about earlier. It requires a realization that technical acumen alone is not going to take us there. You also need to understand other things that lie outside of just your ordinary technical work.
Has there been an aspect to the job that you would say is the part you enjoy the most?
For me, the part that I enjoy the most is working with people. I'm on the management path. In associated engineering, you've got the technical route and you got the project management path. I'm on the project management path. And for the simple reason that I believe that my strengths lie in, managing teams, bringing people together, looking at what the objective is, and seeing a project being delivered, with different people on the project. So that's an aspect of the project that I enjoy. I do enjoy the technical aspects, of course, but the project management side of things is an aspect that I enjoy, being able to meet and collaborate with people from different walks, different clients. For me, that's one thing that I like. But in terms of project delivery, for me, if I deliver a project that I know it meets the client's objectives, but it also has some of those secondary benefits that I talked about, that is a successful project for me. So yeah, that's what I love about my job.
Great. Well, I think that covers everything. Thank you for sitting down and chatting with me today. It's an interesting insight into municipal infrastructure and the challenges that cities are facing these days. Appreciate your time.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, Graham. I enjoyed talking to you.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was Tonderai Chakanyuka, Associated's Manager, Municipal Infrastructure, Central Region. I had the pleasure of speaking with him from his office in Edmonton. That's it for this episode of AE Live. Thank you for joining me, and until next time.
Coming to you on the internet audio, all the STEM homies know ways where you gotta go vibing your ride to the Graham and Michael groove. Well, it's a whole new funky flow whenever treat your ears, get the gist of careers from a list by engineers and scientists, maybe twisted up with technologists. The podcast, baby, and not to be missed. Got more fly than a ripe banana. Like Sam, I got the stamina streaming across Canada. I can treat sugar band, I got that sweetie swag, yeah, and the 411 from Light Horse to Niagara. Don't you know we're gonna innovate? Got a topic here to elevate. Gonna entertain and educate.